Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that we got during the previous night of the local time. Of course, the first we're going to start with Orehov area, with Bradley Square. We got more videos from this area, more clarifications, more details about the yesterday situation, about the yesterday massacre. From probably good news for the Russians, we can start that as a result of fierce fightings in this area, the Russians managed to capture the French AMX-10RC. To tell the truth, I haven't seen any of them during the battle on the battlefields. I remember just Leopards, Bradleys, T-64 tanks and so on, but somehow the Russians managed to capture this type of weapon. This video is not geolocated, we have just the tank that was carried out from the battlefield somewhere in the direction of the mainland of Russian Federation. Another video we're getting from, let's say, northeastern flank of this, let's say, Bradley Cemetery. We're going to talk about this area. We got at least two videos from this bridgehead. The first one is that, according to information we have, yesterday during the battle, the Ukrainians managed to develop their bridgehead to the east in this direction, but the Russians managed to discover, to focus artillery and to destroy the Ukrainian armored vehicles in this area. Later, the Russians sent their reconnaissance team in that direction, and as a result of some reconnaissance operation, they managed to discover and find probably normal tank that can be repaired and used for the Russian army. So that means that the Ukrainians during the day were able to enter this northeastern flank, but then they were defeated and were forced to step back. So basically we will not change the color of this bridgehead until at least we get more confirmation, the video confirmation that the Ukrainians were able to advance further. Also we got the video, and yes, this is a real piece of information. That was the real piece of information. The Ukrainians during the previous days of fierce fightings managed to penetrate the Russians' defense belt. Not penetrate, but lost personal carrier somehow managed to bypass the minefields. Furthermore, the Ukrainian sources, this video was provided by the Ukrainian sources, published that this event took place on the 25th of July, not even yesterday, but 2-3 days before like of today. So that means that this situation doesn't have any connections with the yesterday clashes. That event took before the yesterday's clashes, so it's just an episode which doesn't mean anything, because as you can see, this area is located very far from the main combat line, so I don't think that Ukrainians are able to get there, for now, at least for now. Also, we got some details from the battle of the fields between the lines. It's the probably the old video, the same video that we saw yesterday from another angle. The Russians discovered and attacked the Ukrainian armored vehicle T-64 tank. And of course, we got a lot of video, a lot of photos from the southern flank, from the southern stronghold that Ukrainians were trying to establish. You see these black dots, and these black dots means the Russian fortifications that were captured by the Ukrainians. And so this is the area, this is the line, let's say, before the beginning of offensive operation, and this is what this territory turned into after the Ukrainian attempt to attack. There are around a dozen of armored vehicles just on this photo that Ukrainians were able to redeploy in this direction. It's unknown what the Ukrainians managed to do next with those armored vehicles, whether they continue advancing to the south or whether those armored vehicles were destroyed by the Russian Lancet drones or artillery strike during the night. For now, we haven't received any updates, and we got just another video of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicle, personal carrier with artillery strike. So today the Ukrainians will continue their offensive operation. They will continue digging in deeper, and anyway we see that the facts are saying that the main purpose of the Ukrainian attack, at least was during the previous day, and probably the Ukrainians will stick to the plan, will continue to develop their bridgehead to the south. Maybe they will try to develop a little bit their bridgehead to the east, just to secure their flanks and to capture the strongholds that located along the main road to attack. Now we are moving to Vremivka tactical bridgehead. We got a very interesting update. According to the Ukrainian sources, the Ukrainians managed to establish control over this settlement. The Ukrainians published the video from this territory and so on. But the thing is that for now it's very difficult to tell for 100% that that settlement was captured by the Ukrainians. The Russians confirms that Ukrainians managed to enter the northern part, that Ukrainians managed to force the Russians to step back. If we will include the videos from this area for the previous week, we can see that Ukrainians made few attempts to attack the settlement, and we have, let's say, this video that was made a few days ago, that Ukrainians have already ruined the northern part. And you need to understand that this northern part wasn't destroyed by the grenades and so on. The Ukrainians during the previous weeks and days made significant artillery strikes, significant number of artillery strikes against the northern part of that settlement. A lot of buildings were ruined, and the Russian confirms that there is a real artillery superiority by the Ukrainian forces. So, and we had a few days ago, we had another video how the Russians were withdrawing their positions from the northern part to the southern part. And basically, I'll give you my opinion about the situation. Currently, as I understand, the northern part of that settlement is under Ukrainian control. The southern one part, including the industrial area, the southern edge of that settlement, still remains under Russian control. Furthermore, yesterday we got the video how the Ukrainians were trying to bomb the Russian armored vehicles on the southern road between Staromaiorsk and the settlements that located on the south of this area. So what did happen? Why the Russians left the northern part, and what the Ukrainians are planning to do next? The Russians were forced to step back from the northern part because of, one more time, this video, we see that the northern part is almost reduced to ruins. And when talking about the southern part, the situation is completely different. There are still a lot of fortifications, a lot of buildings that the Russians can use for defending themselves and so on. On this video, we can't see this, we can't find this, but anyway, almost the entire settlement was reduced to ruins. And one more time, the Russians confirmed that Ukrainians have artillery superiority, at least in this direction, and they were bombing and shelling the Russians heavily, and the Russians were forced to make a decision to stop from the northern part and to allow the Ukrainian forces to enter the northern part with one purpose. Almost the same tactics we have already seen in Klishchiivka. The Russians allowed the Ukrainians to enter the southwestern part of Klishchiivka with one purpose, because from now on the Ukrainian artillery systems are not attacking and shelling the settlement so heavy as they did before the Ukrainians enter Klishchiivka, let's say in Staromaiorsk. Currently the Ukrainian artillery system, Ukrainian commanders, they don't have possibility, they're not so flexible to attack the settlement because there are a lot of Ukrainian forces. And as I understand, the situation get to the point when the Russians started losing their forces more in artillery duels in comparison with the close combat. So they took a decision to allow the Ukrainians to enter, that forced the Ukrainians to reduce the artillery pressure, and now this is the situation. So probably this situation fit the Russians' requirements more in comparison with the situation when they were bombed and shelled by the Ukrainians without any counter-artillery duels, at least on this bridgehead. Now we are moving further, and we are going to Donetsk, and we have a few things to talk about the coal mine that located on the south of Krasnogorovka. Yesterday the Russian sources published the video, and the author of that video reported that video was made by the Russians, that the Russians were bombing and shelling some area of the coal mine. So basically that means that, if you remember a few days ago, we discussed that Ukrainian 79th Brigade, this 79th Air Assault Brigade, launched a counter-offensive operation. We haven't received any video, any confirmation about the results of that offensive operation, but probably, as I understand, that offensive operation was pretty successful, and as a result of that attack, the Ukrainians managed to return at least control over part of that area. And basically currently this coal mine is split in two parts. The northwestern part is under Ukrainian control, and the southern one is under Russian control, because we got a lot of videos how the Ukrainians were bombing this territory. If you remember, there was even a video how the Ukrainians were dropping grenades, this one, and this video was made at almost the same time when the Russians published the video bombing of the northern part of that area. So currently this settlement, this part is split in two parts. The southern one is under Russian control, the northern one is under Ukrainian control. So we'll see what is going to be next within the next day. I believe that this situation can't continue the same way. Sooner or later, anyway, the Russians or the Ukrainians will win the battle and will establish entire control over this part of coal mine. Now we're moving to Klishchiivka. Today we got also a lot of updates from this bridgehead. The Ukrainians published very interesting video how they managed to discover and to destroy the Russian TOS flamethrower systems that were heading in direction of Klishchiivka. This video was published today. I'm not sure that this video was made today. Maybe this event took place the day before, but as you can see on this video, the Russians were trying to redeploy the flamethrower system and to attack probably the Ukrainian offensive forces, and the drone attack behind, and that led to complete destroy not just of the flamethrower system but probably over half of the settlement as well. Also, when talking about Andreevka, there is another settlement, another stronghold, let's say on the southern flank of Klishchiivka area. The Ukrainians published another video how they were bombing and attacking the Russians, who was trying to relocate or redeploy their forces through this area. This is probably the second video from this territory, from this bridgehead. And as you can see, this small settlement, this small part of the settlement along the railroad ways is completely reduced to ruins. There are almost nothing left. But I believe that there are some basements and there are some machine gun and strongholds in the basements of those buildings. There are trenches, of course. But this is another video that confirms that the Russians continue controlling this bridgehead, this territory. There is a soldier on the south. So one more time, this is the second video, and this video was published today. And if we take a look at this area, another video was published yesterday from the same area. The Russian soldiers also was trying to move to the north, but he got under artillery fire, probably was killed or wounded, and there was a video of attack using the drone against the Russian tank. So I believe that the chances around 100 is that the Russians still control this settlement, and that the Ukrainians currently try to reduce till ruins to force the Russians to step back, and then they will launch offensive operation. Maybe they are going to do this today. Now let's move to the current updates one more time. The Russians reported that during the battle of Klishchiivka, the commander of Prizrek battalion died. It's a Russian commander, very famous, very popular. So as you can see, this real massacre, of meat grinder from both sides, not just from the Ukrainians. A lot of soldiers from both sides died during the battle for that settlement. Also, the Russian sources published the video of evacuation. This video is too long, as I see. So the Ukrainians were trying to evacuate their personnel in the vicinity of this area, and as a result of artillery duels, fierce fightings, the Russians managed to shut down the Ukrainians' evacuation vehicles. Now we are moving to Klishchiivka bridgehead, not to Klishchiivka, to Liman front line. The Russians published a lot of videos from this area. The first video is about Lancet strike. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainians' artillery positions in Zarechne, and as a result of artillery strike, the Russians destroyed that armored vehicle, howitzer, probably that the Ukrainians were using to attack the Russian offensive forces. So as you can see, the Russians, after a few days of digging in deeper on the Tarskoye salient, currently started attacking an artillery lancet preparation of the bridgehead in the vicinity of this area. That can mean that soon the Russians will make another attempt to attack and another attempt to develop their bridgehead in this area, and to force the Ukrainians to step back completely from Tarskoye, and they will basically cut this territory in two parts. And we also got the video from Terny. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian stronghold in that settlement, and as a result of artillery strike, that stronghold was destroyed, and the Ukrainians probably lost a small operational ammo depot, or probably some stronghold with the infantry inside of that. So the Russians continue preparation before the next wave of attack. And probably we got a very interesting video from the Karamzinovka bridgehead, and why this video is interesting, because this is the fresh one. This video was made of yesterday, and on this video we see how the Ukrainians were trying to send their operational groups, like platoons, to counterattack the Russians in their flanks. And as you can see, the Russians, of course, discovered, tracked the Ukrainians and start bombing them. But the interesting part of that video, that the bombings took place in these areas. So basically most of the mappers have already shown these territories under Russian control, but we see that the Ukrainians still have possibilities to send some reserves and reinforcements in this area to attack the Russian flanks, or at least the Russian supply roads that goes from Kovalyonka and Novoyegorovka. So for now yet we can't say that the Russians control this bridgehead for 100%. There are still problems, there are still roads and ways that Ukrainians can use to attack the Russians in their back and their supply and support roads. Now we're moving to another area, and today we got probably the final confirmation that American Abrams tanks will appear on the battlefield in Ukraine in September. So within a month we are going to start seeing Abrams on the battlefield, and this is very important because this is not just about let's say appearing of Abrams on the battlefield. You need to understand that everything is according to timings, everything is according to some plan, of course. So as I understand, the next months the Ukrainians will continue those suicide operations against the Russians in Orehov area, in Klishchevka, and the Leopards and the Bradleys and Ukrainian forces and old Soviet tanks will make the main job. According to United States plans, it doesn't mean that they're able to do this, of course. They will try to penetrate the Russians' defense belt, and basically if the Ukrainians during the next months are able to get Tokmak will be stormed, and the Ukrainians will try to storm and capture this settlement Tokmak, probably with Abrams and British Challengers. So everything according to timings, and of course they need to publish very beautiful video or photo of entering Tokmak with the Abrams or something like this. It's their plans. It doesn't mean that these plans are going to be implemented ever. And another interesting video is coming, of course, from the North Korea. As you know, the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, Shoigu, recently visited that North Korea, and I haven't added the icon of Kim Chen-in, sorry, my bad. We will do this in the next videos, and we got some probably very interesting videos from that region. For example, after the Shoigu visited, there was a meeting between the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation and Minister of Defense of North Korea and the Minister of Defense of North Korea. Probably they had some agreements, probably they had some negotiations. Some sources are saying that Shoigu visited that country to sign a contract for supplying 152mm shells, rounds from the North Korea. And almost the same days, the North Korean TV published the video of North Korean drone that looks like Global Hawk MQ Reaper of United States of America, but this drone, according to this video, belongs to North Korea. They might create their own one, so probably this is also part of negotiation, a part of the contract that Minister of Defense of Russian Federation signed with the North Korean authorities. So probably soon we're going to see this type of weapon on the battlefield as well. North Korean drones will fly above the territory of Ukraine probably, and very soon. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.